Proof of Heaven, A Neurosurgeon's Journey into the Afterlife, by Dr. Eben Alexander, is a deeply personal narrative that details the author's near-death experience, NDE, and his radical transformation from a skeptic of the afterlife into a firm believer in the existence of consciousness beyond the brain. The book, published in 2012, has become a bestseller and sparked much debate in scientific, spiritual, and philosophical circles. Below is a summary of the key elements of Proof of Heaven, including its themes, structure, and the conclusions Alexander draws from his extraordinary experience. Background of Dr. Eben Alexander. Dr. Eben Alexander begins his book by establishing his credentials as a neuroscientist and neurosurgeon. Prior to his near-death experience, he had spent over 25 years as a practicing physician and had taught at institutions like Harvard Medical School. He was a firm believer in the materialist view of the brain, that consciousness is produced by brain activity, and that there is no existence beyond the physical world. He was also skeptical of patients' accounts of NDEs, attributing them to the brain's hallucinations under stress or trauma. The illness, bacterial meningitis. In November 2008, Alexander contracted a rare form of bacterial meningitis, Escherichia coli meningitis, which primarily affects infants and is extremely rare in adults. Within hours of the infection attacking his brain, Alexander slipped into a coma. His medical team gave him little chance of survival, and even if he did survive, they expected that he would be severely brain damaged. During the 7 days that he was in a coma, his brain showed very little measurable activity. The neocortex, the part of the brain responsible for higher functions like thought and awareness, was effectively shut down. According to Alexander, it was during this time that he experienced a vivid journey into another dimension of existence, an experience that would profoundly challenge his understanding of consciousness and the afterlife. The journey to the afterlife. In the book, Alexander describes his NDE as taking place in 3 distinct stages. 1. The realm of the earthworm's eye view. At the start of his experience, Alexander found himself in what he calls the realm of the earthworm's eye view, a dark, murky, and unresponsive place that felt like being submerged deep within the earth. There was no awareness of time, and he felt disconnected from his human self. He likens this realm to a primordial state, where he was conscious but limited in awareness, as though stuck in a biological or primal level of existence. 2. The gateway and the presence of a guide. From this dark place, Alexander was suddenly propelled upward into a brighter, more expansive realm. He found himself in a world filled with vibrant colors, indescribable beauty, and a sense of overwhelming love. In this heavenly dimension, he encountered a young woman who acted as his guide. This woman communicated with him through feelings and thoughts rather than spoken words, and she conveyed 3 crucial messages. You are loved and cherished dearly forever. You have nothing to fear. There is nothing you can do wrong. Alexander later discovered that this woman resembled a biological sister he never knew, as she had died before he was born, further validating his belief in the spiritual significance of his journey. 3. The core, a direct encounter with the divine. The final stage of Alexander's journey took him to what he calls the core, an ineffable realm of pure, all-encompassing love and unity, where he felt a direct encounter with God or the divine. In this realm, there was no separation between him and the divine presence, and all his questions about the universe, existence, and love were answered instantaneously. Alexander describes this place as beyond the limitations of earthly language and understanding. He calls this entity Om because the sound represented the fullness of its power and presence. The return to earth. After spending what felt like an eternity in this heavenly realm, Alexander was told that he had to return to his earthly life, as his journey there was not yet complete. Although he did not want to leave, he was suddenly pulled back into his body, and soon after, he awoke from the coma. His recovery stunned his doctors. Given the severity of his condition, the fact that he regained full cognitive function and made a complete recovery was nothing short of miraculous. His family and medical team were equally astonished, as they had expected severe brain damage, if not death. Scientific and spiritual reflections. Upon waking from his coma, Alexander was convinced that his experience was not a dream or hallucination, but a real journey beyond the physical world. He began to question his previous beliefs about the brain and consciousness. In Proof of Heaven, he spends considerable time exploring the scientific and philosophical implications of his NDE. Alexander challenges the materialist view that the brain produces consciousness. He argues that if his neocortex had been completely inactive, as the medical record showed, his brain could not have been responsible for generating the vivid, coherent, and profoundly real experience he had while in the coma. He concludes that consciousness must exist independently of the brain, and that there is an afterlife where the soul continues to exist after death. He also reflects on the nature of God and the universe, suggesting that love is the fundamental force that underpins all existence. The messages he received during his journey emphasized that the universe is deeply interconnected and that human beings are not alone, but rather part of a divine plan. Reception and criticism. Proof of Heaven quickly became a bestseller and has inspired many readers, particularly those who have had similar experiences or are seeking reassurance about the afterlife. The book resonated with people from various religious and spiritual backgrounds and contributed to the growing interest in the study of NDEs. However, Alexander's story has also faced criticism, particularly from scientists and skeptics. Some neuroscientists argue that his experience could have been a result of residual brain activity or a hallucination caused by the chemical processes associated with dying. Others point to the fact that near-death experiences often have cultural or religious undertones, which can suggest that they are subjective rather than evidence of an objective afterlife. Alexander addresses these criticisms in the book, acknowledging that there will always be skeptics, but insisting that his experience was so real and transformative that he can no longer accept the materialist view of consciousness. He urges readers to be open to the possibility that science and spirituality can coexist, and that consciousness might be more than just a product of brain activity. Conclusion: a changed man. By the end of the book, Dr. Eben Alexander has undergone a profound spiritual transformation. Once a skeptic, he now believes that his experience revealed the truth about the nature of consciousness, the afterlife, and the divine. He encourages readers to explore their own spiritual journeys and to remain open to the possibility that love and consciousness are eternal forces that transcend the physical world. Proof of Heaven is more than just a memoir of a near-death experience. It is a reflection on the relationship between science and spirituality, a challenge to conventional understandings of the brain, and a message of hope for those wondering about what lies beyond death. Dr. Alexander's journey may not convince all readers, but it certainly invites deep contemplation about the mysteries of life and consciousness.